To start things off, this is our part of our Spotlight on Partners webinar series. My name is Evan. I manage the App Center partnerships here in Atera. Some of you, these names I recognize, and those of you who I've met before, it's nice to reconnect, albeit virtually. To all the rest of you, looking forward to getting to know you and to working together to bring the most value out of our App Center and into Atera. This webinar is going to be called Turning Complexity into Clarity, right? It's going to be to get together with Webroot, the cybersecurity landscape for MSPs and SMBs, SMBs. A few housekeeping rules as we get moving. First of all, the webinar is being recorded. It'll be posted to our website. All the participants are muted. Feel free to send questions in the chat, and we will try and address them throughout. The recording of the session will be shared with you. There will be live Q&As, right? Questions or comments for the presenters should be placed in the Q&A window. We have Mike and Jake here. They will both introduce themselves. They are great. And both during and at the end of the webinar, we'll have a short survey. It'll take just a few seconds, and we would appreciate your responses. So on that note, Mike, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks. Yeah. So I'm Mike DePalma. I am the Vice President of Business Development here at OpenText. So I run the team that's kind of the public facing arm. We're the ones out at all the events. So if you're heading to any of those events, chances are I've met you or somebody on my team has. Been with OpenText since March, but I've got about 11 years in the channel. So looking forward to this webinar for sure.
And Jake?
Hey guys, really happy to be here. As mentioned, my name is Jake Regan. I'm a senior solution consultant with OpenText. So I actually joined around a year and a half ago through the acquisition of Pillar, which has developed into the platform that we know today as OpenText EDR/MDR. My role is effectively working with our partners to help identify the challenges, the problems, and opportunities they have within the customer environments, and ultimately identify where our solutions can be of assistance and help get them implemented and get them rolling.
Thanks, Jake. Thanks, Mike. Like I said, Evan Chesser, I manage the Atera App Center, our marketplace. We've been working with OpenText now from the Webroot days for many, many years, along with many other vendors. We have a fairly advanced integration. Most of you do use it, some of you might not, and we're always happy to go into it. At the end of the day, in terms of our App Center, we have several areas of value. The two most important or most prominent areas of value that our customers benefit from via the App Center is first, consolidated billing. We manage the billing relationship with all of you. So you could have many different vendors, OpenText/Webroot, all your backup solutions, other areas, other security solutions, network solutions, remote access, and so forth, all under one bill, all under one account rep for those of you who have contractual subscriptions. Basically, it could be the single point of purchase for your IT needs, and with using our relationship with companies like OpenText, we can really help you, gain the exposure that you need with the vendors. OpenText in particular is very forthcoming when different either challenges or opportunities arise, or you have questions and so forth. So we can really work with you by consolidating those vendors, and we have an integration via the Atera integration with Webroot. You can install devices. You can provision your customers if you're an MSP. If you're an IT department, you can provision your sites all via Atera directly into the OpenText console, and all while still giving you obviously full access to the other console, so that you can use both if you would like, or if you want to rely on the integration or on the reporting that we pull in. In terms of the App Center itself, we offer several vendors, as you can see here. We have Axient and Acronis on the backup side. We touch other areas of security outside of endpoint security as well. Things like IronScales, which is an email security platform. We have another webinar coming up with them in a little bit. We have network monitoring solutions, password managers, and so forth. So, with no further ado, I kind of want to start off with a poll. Let's take a break and the poll will appear on your screen in just a second. Let us know what you think. We'll give it another, 10, 15 seconds. Nice. Nice to see all these responses. Okay. Without further ado, I think the time has come. Let's pass the baton over to Webroot. And then as questions come up, feel free to continue saying them in the chat. We will try to address them. Here we go. Mike, it's all yours.
All right, thank you. So as was mentioned, I'm Mike DePalma. I am the VP of Business Development for OpenText Cybersecurity. I do have some slides. It's not letting me share right now, but that's fine because it's mostly going to be conversational. So like I said, I've been in this role about 10 months, and we've been going around to a lot of these events, kind of talking about what the MSP of the future is going to look like. And it had been fun conversations, right? So we've been utilizing some studies that we've done with folks like Canalys and Omdia, as well as some of the internal studies to kind of get a picture of where the landscape is. And when we did the presentation with Canalys, they kind of framed it as this is MSP 3.0. First phase being the break fix that we saw, 20 years ago. Then there was the transition to where we are now, the managed recurring revenue model. And then now that we have AI, we've got much more cloud solutions. They kind of phrase the term MSP 3.0. We've been phrasing it a little bit differently when we look at the evolution. And I think it's important to the conversation we're going to have today, right? So we saw the transition from break fix over to the MSP space is where we've been living for the last couple of decades. But the next iteration, in our opinion, is a BSP, which is essentially a business solutions provider. And now we're looking at business outcomes. I truly believe, and it's come through some of the studies, that the way that MSPs are going to generate revenue 5 years from now is going to look vastly different than it does right now. We've been in this model of, okay, I'm going to have a product in my stack. I know what I could market up. Here's my revenue. Now it's really putting all of these solutions together and providing, a true business outcome. And when we look at the landscape and the need for tools like EDR and MDR that was mentioned earlier, again, I'm a big believer in looking at studies, third-party studies, figuring out exactly what we're seeing. And we've seen over the last several years, a decrease since COVID in these malware infection rates, right? We saw a big boom during COVID. Slowly, as the world kind of business community understood the importance of it, we started to see it come down. What was interesting was it's a pretty significant uptick in 2024. It might not look that large on this screen, but in the business community, there was a 28% uptick in these malware infections. And that's kind of a scary thing. We've put all of these things in place, but it kind of shows that there's never a final page in this book of cybersecurity, right? It's always evolving. And as an MSP and as a vendor, we have to continue to evolve with it to combat the threats that are out there. Now, we know that uptick probably occurred with folks trying to handle it in-house, not working with an MSP, because most of the MSPs I'm working with, they do have a multi-layered approach and they understand the need for all of these tools and how they integrate with one another, whereas a small business handling it on their own has a much tougher time navigating that and even really staying up to date with all of the threats that are out there. So that's the good sign. I always look at these stats as a huge opportunity for the channel, because now the business community is falling behind these criminals. We're seeing it. And it's a huge opportunity for us from the vendor side to the MSP to this now BSP to go in there and say, hey, these threats are still there. They're always evolving. And that's why you always need to continuously look at the stack you have. Now, when we look at ransomware specifically, and you look at where the majority of these attacks are occurring, close to 70% are occurring with businesses between 1 and 1,000 seats. The exact type of customer that you're working with, right? We might get ransomware to death when we're in our industry because every vendor talks about it and there's a new study every other day. But it just shows you that the small business community still is not prepared for it. And they know that the folks that we work with are the biggest targets because they're typically easier to get through. And in terms of ransomware, they tend to pay a lot more often than the large organizations who are able to absorb the downtime that ransomware might influence on a company, whereas a small business just really can't do that. And so that's where we're seeing kind of the opportunity. And within the Canalys report, they looked at opportunity over the next 12 months in terms of revenue generation for the MSP space. And AI-driven cybersecurity is across the board double digits, however way you want to carve it up. When we look at kind of the different hierarchies, just IT managed services alone projected to grow 13%. Managed cybersecurity, which is a lot of what we're going to talk about today, there's a growth of 15%, and then MDR services is at the top when we look at potential revenue generation. And really, it's becoming, no longer a nice to have, but a need to have. And so those conversations with your clients need to be kind of prescriptive at this point. And saying like, look, I know when we talked security 2 years ago, we had a good plan in place, but everything is evolving. And luckily there's folks out there that are keeping up with those criminals, but we need to implement this. And that's why that conversation of not just here's another widget I got to add into my managed services stack to get this extra margin. It's really about what are my ultimate goals for you as a managed service provider. We have the cybersecurity side, and then we've got the business operations side as well. Whereas a managed service provider, I could utilize all these AI tools to actually influence your profitability as a small business. And then when we look at kind of where AI ties into this, obviously on our side, utilizing AI is going to very much improve the speed in which we could get to incident resolution. But we now know that the bad actors are utilizing the same thing. And there's a million stories of that out there. And I could give you some if you've got a lunch and learn you've got to do. But the other piece is that compliance aspect of it. And beyond compliance is the cybersecurity insurance applications that have grown from 10 pages to 100 pages. And a lot of times these type of tools are required. And if they're not required now, they will be. And so it's about staying ahead of that curve. And at the end of the day, all of these regulations, all they're doing is shifting the burden over to that small business. Whatever regulation, and we've got a lot of different countries represented here. Everybody's got different regulations, but ultimately what they're all doing is shifting that burden over to the small business. They're not typically helping to catch any of these guys or prevent them from getting in. What they're saying is it's your responsibility, Mr. Small Business Owner, to make sure that your data is protected and your client's data and your employee data. Because even if you survive one of these attacks, we're still going to come knocking on your door saying, show me your incident response plan. Same goes for those cybersecurity insurance applications. There's a reason why they've grown. There's a reason why every one of those questions is answered, because now they've got data on who is a bigger risk and who isn't, who are utilizing these tools. All of this is a huge opportunity for MSPs to come in there and say, hey, this is why you need to outsource it, not just on an a la carte basis, but outsource your IT to me. And we just released a State of the MSP report that we talked to thousands of MSPs around the globe, and we looked at what they were concerned about, right? We understand the opportunity in AI. We understand the tool fatigue. We are seeing a lot of more kind of platform-based or bundled together product stacks, which is what we're trying to do here at OpenText as well. And then the security really at the end of the day outweighs the cost. We are seeing that, and this is coming directly from them. But what was interesting to me was that when we looked at AI, just about every respondent was saying, hey, this is going to drive business growth for me. But less than half were actually prepared for it. And those are the folks that believed they were prepared for it. So that number probably falls a little bit lower. So there's this knowledge gap there. And the tidal wave of AI is coming so quickly that all of us, from the vendors down to the MSPs, need to figure out where we position ourselves in this AI world. And I do think it's that business solution provider kind of concept that I'm going to navigate you through all of these different things, Mr. Small Business Owner. And so, I'm going to hand it over in a minute to Jake, who's going to go into a little bit more technical detail, and he'll be handling most of the questions. But like I said, I've been out on the road doing a lot of presentations, and we looked at our EDR, right now in the vendor space, there's a million acronyms for everything. What's EDR compared to MDR, MXDR, ITDR, SOC, SIM, SOAR, all of these different types of things. And so we like to just define it as that business outcome. Like, what does our EDR look like? We can get into the weeds, and Jake can, and compare speeds and feeds and things that we do that others might not, and vice versa. But at the end of the day, you're looking at a cutting edge endpoint sensor that includes within it a full-blown SIM and a SOAR, so security orchestration and automated response tool. And to me, that's been where a lot of the conversations have lied. I mean, if I'm in a boardroom or a smaller meeting, I'll do show of hands how many people are currently, utilizing a SOAR, and I would say it's less than 10%. And it's a tool that really, for us, makes things very simple for you. So it's really just a dashboard, and I'm sure Jake can show it, but it's essentially like playing with Legos. We've got a bunch of built-in incidents that are out there, and you say, okay, well, malware is detected. What automated response do we want? Okay, we want to quarantine that threat. But then we also want to see if it was remediated or not. If it was, perfect. Here's a list of the emails that should be sent out. If not, let's go isolate the endpoint, maybe send out texts or emails that need to be done. But again, this is for you to just speed up the process in terms of how you can address any of these incidents as they come in. And this is customizable. And so that's kind of how we're defining EDR, that endpoint detection and response. We want that endpoint sensor as well as a socket, as well as a SIM, and this SOAR add-on as well, which is all included in the package. So I'm going to stop sharing now. I'm going to turn it over to get into a little bit more detail on the product itself.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike. And again, thanks for having us here. It's really interesting to dive into these kind of topics. And I think it's interesting as well, some of the points Mike mentions there about, everything being, a widget and compartmentalized. I think one of the great things that we achieve with OpenText, EDR, and Webroot is providing consolidation across these, previously disparate tool sets, so that we have the information in front of us. We've got the threat intelligence built into that. We've got capabilities to take action. So everything is woven together, so it's not existing separately and we're having to hunt around for different pieces of information. And I think that's really, a great thing that we achieve with this platform. So I'll just share my screen for a moment here and kick things off with the technical side of things. Just to begin with a few slides, just to capture the essence of what partners get through OpenText, EDR, or Webroot, as we know, of course, within Atera. It is effectively a cybersecurity platform. So it's not simply just EDR, hey, we're going to detect the threats that exist in the environment and give you the means to take action on them. That is, of course, important. But when we talk about turning this complexity into clarity, we do include a number of other solutions within that really help you gain that visibility into your customer environments. So of course, EDR, MDR at the forefront of this. We want to make sure that the activities and behaviors that are posing a risk to your customer environments are detected, first of all, and then secondly, are remediated as necessary and also communicated. But then when we look at the SIM side as well, this is, from a legacy perspective, often being a tool that has been somewhat inaccessible to MSPs and somewhat inaccessible to small to medium businesses as well. This is what the platform enables. We're giving you access to sophisticated technologies that allow you to dive really deep into your customer environment and view particular logs from the endpoint, firewall, cloud. You get that deep visibility. It allows you to conduct investigations as and when needed, build your own custom searches, and then ultimately take that data to the places it needs to go, whether it is for compliance or whether it's for the customer themselves. We also integrate heavily with other solutions in your stack. We understand that many MSPs, they have tools that they love and tools that they have heavily invested into. So our integrations allow you to still continue to reap those benefits, but bringing that data into a centralized location so that suddenly you're managing 3 different EDR solutions potentially, all being pulled into this singular platform. And then, of course, as Mike already mentioned, we do include a security orchestration automation response solution within this platform. This really allows you to get sophisticated with your remediation process, for different types of attacks that we see. It really goes beyond what you typically get from an EDR solution. Through this SOAR engine, I can specify rules that say, hey, if I see a user added to an admin group, and it's not one of these 3 users who I expect to do that, I want to send an email for communication, and I also want to leverage this agent to lock that user account. And I can also send action to Microsoft to lock that same account. in the cloud. So we're pulling all of these different solutions together really to just give you more tools in your tool belt. Now, from an EDR perspective, everything is really about what data we can ingest and what we can do with that data. So there's 4 main types of data that we pull in within OpenText EDR. First of all, we have the EDR agent, of course. This is a source of remediation. So this is where action can be taken to isolate, quarantine, remediate, restart, whatever's necessary to alleviate a particular threat. But it's also a source of collecting data. We look at around 25 times more data than typical EDR solutions. That's because we're pulling in all system and security logs, including Sysmon. So this gives us really granular insights into the different processes and services that are running on machines. We also look at inventory data. So all the applications installed, all of the patches installed. We look at 100% of the file system. And this is a key differentiator here. Often EDR solutions are only looking at what's heavily interacting with the environment, what's new, what's displaying potentially malicious heuristics. We pull every single file hash from the endpoint. We also look at browser extensions. We've published a lot of research into the different types of malware that can be present in these. Think of coupon extensions that always get you a good deal on a website, where there's often a little bit more under the hood than you might anticipate. We look at URL activity as well. So we're collecting this vast amount of data, and then the next thought process or the next layer is, what do we do with this? So we have contextualization. I mentioned MITRE attack matrix here. Effectively, we leverage this to understand what are the typical behaviors of attackers, what signals do they generate, and then ultimately build our rule sets based on that knowledge. We also correlate with the CV database. So we provide vulnerability management capabilities within the platform. So you can specifically see which patches are missing from particular machines, or which applications are running behind a few versions. It's possible you may already have a patching solution in place. This is a great second look. It means you have that backstop to making sure that patching process is working effectively. And then, of course, we contextualize anything and everything with threat intelligence. So you're going to get access to over 35 threat intelligence feeds within this platform, where we can query different file hashes, extensions, URLs. This gives you really good first perspective of what is it I'm looking at here? What kind of severity does it have? And in particular, for those who do go down the managed detection and response path, you will get access to our threat hunting capabilities as well. This is part of the standard for MDR. This is not an add-on. This is going to allow our team to dive even deeper into your customer environments. There are things, and we know attackers are very sophisticated and crafty. There are things that may not already have a rule built for, novel attacks and things that are interestingly new. This team are diving deep into the weeds, looking at files, looking at PowerShell scripts that are running, SSH, RDP connections. Our goal is to capture the things that a tool alone will ultimately miss. And that's just the first type of data. The others are a little quicker to jump into before we get into the platform. We integrate with tools across your stack. So Webroot here is mentioned. We do integrate directly with Webroot, of course. It's really quick and easy to set up. But also additional tools you might leverage, like PSA for ticket management, MFA tools as well, email monitoring tools. Third, we have cloud. And this is being a game changer for our partners who manage multiple, typically it's Microsoft, but we do support Google and AWS environments. But you're managing multiple environments across your customers. This is going to allow you to consolidate all of that data into this platform. We're going to apply that same threat intelligence. We're going to give you the means to build, security orchestrations against that data. There's a lot of cool things we can pull in here. It's not just the alerts that Microsoft generate. It's also some of the raw logs that we can then build our own alerts based on. So things like mass file migrations or deletions. And then finally, we've already mentioned compliance as a use case here, but we do provide the ability to ingest additional network devices into the platform. things like firewalls, routers, switches. We do that via syslog, where the agent actually acts as a syslog forwarder. So I guess the overall premise of what this platform is providing is it's data ingest. What data is important? What do we care about? That's the agent, syslog, and then integrations with your other solutions. We provide the SIM, which gives you complete visibility, freedom to explore the data as necessary, and leverage different use cases. We then take 100% of this data and generate the insights on the 1% that really matters from a security perspective. So we have continuous rule, but we have a continuously adapting detection engineering rule set. So we're flagging things that we know to be malicious. We, of course, bring in the alerts from your other tools, and then we have threat hunting on top of that. And again, if you go down the MDR path, it's not just a case of, hey, here's some things that we found that are malicious. We're providing the team that can, whether it's 3 a.m. on a Sunday or 5 p.m. on a Tuesday, they're going to be the ones in the weeds, diving into that particular alert, identifying its impact, its severity, its scale, and really making sure that we treat it with the necessary precaution it needs. And then, of course, building automation throughout the platform. Anything you guys already do today from a security perspective, I always challenge, if you will, our partners to look at those procedures and say, how can we automate this through the platform? How can we build a better procedure that's going to do more of the heavy lifting for us? So with all that being said, I know we've gone through a few slides there. I want to show you first and foremost how quick and easy it is to set this up through the GSM platform, which I'm sure many of you will already be familiar with. This is really easy. You'll have a list of your customer sites. I have a few examples here. And then from there, we'll click on the customer, go to endpoint protection. Your view may be slightly different, given that this will of course stem from your Atera Webroot instance. But in essence, you will just need to activate the endpoint detection and response toggle here. What this information on the right-hand side is specifying is if you already have a Webroot deployed, anywhere where Webroot is deployed will automatically begin to download the EDR component. And then you can manage all of that through the policies that you already have defined within GSM. So if there are specific machines in environments that you don't wish to have EDR for any particular reason, of course, you would want them to follow the the policy that does not specify that EDR will automatically be installed. But yeah, in a nutshell, it is as simple as toggling EDR on, and then everywhere with your Webroot will download the EDR sensor. And then to actually dive into the platform itself, we'll click on detection and response on the left-hand side here. I'll have a coffee while that loads. Awesome. Must be a little shy. So the layer is very simplistic. We really want to present the most important information first and foremost. So what you will effectively see as you dive into this platform is a dashboard with all the main piece of information like alerts, vulnerabilities, and agents deployed. Any platform updates will keep you up to date with new alert types we've introduced, new integration capabilities. Status is for your integrations. If we see any of those in error mode, we want to let you guys know and say, hey, we're no longer collecting data from Microsoft, for example. And then metrics, just to give you some indication of which of your third-party solutions are sending the highest volume of data. And then it's really quick and easy to get started after that, because you've already got your agents deployed through Webroot automatically installing that agent. You can see a general overview in here of how many agents you have, online, offline. The agent will automatically update itself. So if you do see anything out of date, in all likelihood, it's just offline and it will update as soon as it comes back on. And then we can see a list of all of your different endpoints with the agent installed. Notably, this is where both our team and yours have access to these different agent capabilities. So we can isolate, quarantine, delete files. We can kill the process associated with that file. And then from an integration perspective, as touched on, we have a high number of integrations that really offer ingestion capabilities across your stack. And my favorites to talk about are, of course, Webroot. This just means that the alerts that Webroot is already generating as your EPP, we still want to feed into this platform so that we have A, that visibility, and then B, the capability to take additional action through the EDR agent as well. And then Microsoft, this is an all-encompassing Microsoft integration. So any Defender solutions that you're already using, we're going to pull in that alert. Intune, we're pulling in the logs of when devices check in and say, I am compliant or I'm not compliant. We then can generate alerts to notify you of devices that are no longer compliant, those who haven't been compliant for a week, or any policy changes or deletions in your environment. I'm sure you guys want to have some visibility into, where machines are posing a risk. Identity is very much ingesting those sign-in logs, so we can flag things like impossible travel or malicious IP sign-ins. And then O365 is that catch-all. We're going to pull in data from Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, a number of different use cases around that as well. And then once you've got the data flowing into the platform through the agents, the integrations, cloud, and perhaps syslog, search is your window into everything that's happening within that environment. The platform is multi-tenant, so I can pivot onto any particular customer of interest at the time, or I can explore more generally. You'll see a list of different log sources that you're able to dive deeper into. So everything from Windows logs to that Microsoft data that I previously mentioned. Identity is always a fun one because there's normally some interesting things happening in here. And then we can dive into 60 days worth of data in the platform. I'll just choose 30 for now. And then the layout, as with every page in the platform, is designed to be very intuitive, very easy to read and pull the relevant information from. So here we can see the rate of the data ingest of identity data. This map's currently getting an update, but this will represent different sign-in attempts, both successful and failed across the globe. And then we pass all of the data that we collect from every single log source. So whilst we can add queries up here, the language is Lucene, which is pretty easy to navigate. Most of the time, I'm just adding filters and saying, okay, based on my 859 sign-in logs here, what are the top hits? Which users are most active? What are they signing into? A lot of this is, of course, will be dictated with my particular use case, but there's a lot of information to kind of lean into. So I can look at something like audit logs, purely sign-in logs, not directory audits. I can then look at something like, okay, if I remove all the successful sign-ins, who is failing to sign in most often? And then we get a few key results here. Each one of these lines is a particular log. First and foremost, we're going to present the most important information in columns. So things like username, email, what they were signing into. I've already mentioned that threat intelligence. We've woven it into the platform. So it's really easy from an analyst perspective to understand, is what I'm looking at a potential threat? And there's a key difference here between an 18 rated risk score and 100 rated risk score for an IP address. So this would be a little bit more of a cause for concern. And then I can pivot further into each one of these logs and start to build the search that I'm interested in. So conditional access was not applied to this particular sign-in. If I hover over this, I can see the different results from this data set. So I can see that conditional access had a failure for some of these sign-ins. I want to add that as a column by checking the left-hand box here. Event details, of course, that's always going to be somewhat interesting. And then maybe also the the country code as well. And if I go to add a particular filter up here, like the country code, I will be able to see the populated list of the different results that are in this data set. So sign-ins coming from US, Australia mostly. And then we can take this data, I'll close that, take this data, explore it as necessary. We can also export this. You might want to build a pivot table, or you might want to, again, provide it to cyber insurance or whoever's requiring it. And we can also export up to 50,000 results if we've got a pretty heavy data set, and send it wherever it needs to go. So maximum visibility, we also provide the means to save particular searches. So this one's very simplistic. It's all O365 failed sign-ins. Give it the same description and save it either privately to my user or globally. Save that here. You can then build custom alerts from those saved searches. Likely things that are very specific to your custom environment. I have a particular saved search here for PowerShell that's running on any machine that is not this one, which we expect PowerShell to run on. So I load that. It will, of course, query the PowerShell logs. It will remove that particular host. And then my alert says, I just need to see one PowerShell log running anywhere else, and that's a cause for concern in this particular environment. This is going to be bespoke to your customers. As part of what you get through this platform is, access to hundreds of alerts. We continuously build these out. We stay up to date with what's happening in the wild, what's trending, what are our partners seeing. So we build alerts based on this data, from the generic, so new shim installed, to the very specific, like looking at particular hack tools being detected, like Bloodhound and Sharphound. So there's somewhat of a range. We hope that many of these our partners never get to see, but they are there to make sure that we can detect those as needed. So that's a lot on the SIM side. I said it's maximum visibility, but we know that you're not going to spend your days searching through logs, kind of finding the needle in the haystack. So that's what we want to do for you guys. And that's what our detection engineering is all about. So as we go to the alerts, these are things that warrant more attention based on a series of conditions or rules that have been met. We can see a general breakdown of total alerts.
Jake, one thing I just want to interject from an Atera perspective. These SIM functionalities that we just saw are actually unique to OpenText within the Atera App Center in terms of the offerings. So it is something that is kind of exciting, and I want to point that out to our customers. You'll only get it here.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. And then, as we dive into the alert side of things, so we can break it down in a number of different ways. Of course, alerts by month. It's often interesting to look at alerts by log source. Apologies, this is a demo environment, so we do have a very noisy Webroot instance, which actually makes it difficult to see these other 4 columns, which I believe are Microsoft-based detections. But then we can dive into the alerts by the rule. Generally speaking, the alerts fall under one of 3 different categories. First of all, we're going to have EDR-based detections. So that's looking at all of the data that we're collecting from the EDR agent, like the Windows event logs, like the file hashes. Secondly, we have third-party solution alerts. So if you have integrated with, say, Ironscales or Duo, any particular alerts that they generate will pull into the platform. And then third, we have cloud. So all the Microsoft data that we're collecting, we can build alerts from. So if we look at a typical example of the malware detected, the alert title is dynamic, so they're going to highlight specifically what type of malware we're dealing with. I can then dig deeper into, let's just pick this top one. It's going to pull in particular with this Webroot integration, all those same details that you get through Webroot. like the name of the host, the location of the file. We're just running some threat analysis in the background to determine the risk score. So even if this comes from, whether it comes from Webroot, whether it comes from an additional solution, we're going to provide some validation into, do we believe this is a threat based on our threat intelligence as well? We can see, other relevant details, again, like the file path. Every single alert that we have includes a link to the knowledge base to give, in particular, if you're leveraging EDR, so running more things in-house, to give everyone who touches this alert a little bit more perspective of what it is and why we flagged it. And then we can take action via Webroot to address this particular threat, or we can take action through the agent as well. Looks like this particular machine does not have the EDR agent installed, because otherwise I would see that agent appear just above Webroot, where I would have access to all of these same capabilities as well. And then what we can do from there, is start to build a workflow out that is going to allow us to streamline how this alert is handled moving forward. So by default, within MDR, there are 3 workflows automatically enabled for malware, ransomware, and phishing domains. They're very simple. They say escalate to SOC. We're going to be the ones to conduct that initial investigation. However, you may want something else happening in the background. So let's just call this a malware detected response. And we'll say category is malware. What actions do we want to take? We say email notification. And then we can create the workflow directly from the alert itself. This will open the workflow configuration window. We can now see that any malware detected alert, we can add additional actions. Oops, sorry, that is, let me pull that up again. So there we go. So we have malware detected. And at this point, probably our priority is to take some form of remediative action. So we can specify that we'd like to isolate that endpoint, and we'll do that for 24 hours. You will see a number of different integration options. Here we'll select Pillar, which is the EDR agent that's installed. If you had additional solutions integrated into this platform, you would also see those as an option to take action. And then once the machine is isolated, we want to implement some guardrails. So let's just say we'll check the isolation status. And this is very similar, I think, to what Mike highlighted before in the slide. If the machine is isolated, great. We can send a chat message to a Teams channel or wherever we want to communicate, in this particular instance. If it's not isolated, then we, of course, want to take further action and attempt different options. Maybe we want to remediate the threat. We also probably want to send an additional message to say, hey, we attempted action, it failed, we're attempting something else, just to give everyone complete visibility. And this is, as part of your typical, EDR solution. It's ingesting data, making a determination on whether it's a threat, and then having remediative action take place. One of the differentiators that you get through this platform is your capacity to respond is significantly expanded by having the agent and having such a wide variety of alerts that can be generated. So if we circle back and we decide to build a workflow for something like a brute force attack, which is of course a vastly different type of activity than your typical malware, we can still initiate some of those same actions. So we can still isolate the endpoint, but we can also take more user-specific actions here. So we might want to lock that user account on-premise, and we can take that same user account and lock that account within Microsoft as well. So now we've got a number of different response capabilities all woven into this same workflow. And then, of course, continue to build on this by add in communicative actions, or we might even want to add up here certain conditions where I can say, okay, if I see a brute force attack, maybe we've got an automated scanner that's called scanner 123. So it's that username. Then let's just close the alert because I know this is expected to happen. There's a lot of power. I always recommend to our partners, once you get onboarded to the platform, have a play around with the trial, start to see what kind of detections are being generated in your own environment. You start to get a good idea of what kind of automation is going to be beneficial both internally and applicable, to your end customers. And then just to highlight an additional type of alert, we can look at something like an identity detection, where we've pulled in data directly from Microsoft Identity. We're going to pull in all the different pieces of the puzzle in this window. So notably, we see unlikely travel detected. Who for? This user. Here's the information about this user. Here's the information about where that travel occurred. Why is this considered unlikely? Well, they signed in from Washington. I can see they normally sign in from GB. Again, just having some familiarity with the platform means that I'm able to deduce that. But of course, this is part of the learning curve, I think, sometimes. We can see context about the IP address. Again, it's malicious. We can actually dive deeper into the SIM and see the logs themselves, which led to this detection. And then as the cherry on top, full circle, based on this determination, we can say, let's lock this user account at least until we get to communicate with this user and this business. So it's giving more power to actually take action in the place where alerts exist, rather than alerts living here and then having to follow a whole other procedure and process elsewhere where any number of balls can potentially be dropped. I do think that is the core functionality of the platform from an EDR, MDR perspective. I'm aware there's probably going to be some questions as well, so I want to give time for those. But there is a lot more to explore here as well. We have vulnerabilities, reports, threat intelligence that you can proactively leverage. I think file hash is a good one. There's a lot of functionality, and it's good to explore.
Thanks, Jake. To the crowd, I think this is a good opportunity for people to join in and ask any questions. You feel free to write it in the Q&A or in the chat, and Jake will answer it. In the meantime, thank you very much, Jake, and Mike. Appreciate.
Thanks, guys.
Appreciate it. I want to send out another poll question from Atera, so get ready for it. Here it goes. Give it another few seconds, 20, 30 seconds for people to ask questions and to answer the poll. Yeah, I have one here. Someone asked if it's suggested that you use the SIM together with another external SIM or not.
No, this would be your only SIM.
Okay. Okay, feel free to send. Here, another question. I think I can take this one actually. Someone asked if you need to buy each of them together or separately to sign up for the EDR and MDR. So to answer you, wherever you are out there, Mike, not you, Mike De Palma. No, it's included in Atera's pricing model here. It's included when you get MDR, you'll also get the EDR capabilities and the basic antivirus. Same thing with EDR. You get the basic capabilities included already. Anything else from the crowd? Close up there. Okay, I'll give another few seconds. Okay, good. Thank you everyone for joining. Mike, Jake, have a fantastic rest of your day. And
Thanks for having us.
have a good day, night, morning, wherever you're located.